Is the Eucharist the real presence of Jesus, or is it just a memorial of the Last Supper? When we look to Scripture, Catholics will argue that Jesus is speaking literally about his body and blood being present, whereas Protestants will say that he's speaking metaphorically, so that doesn't help us much. But when we look to the theology and practice of the early church, the answer is clear. They knew that the Eucharist wasn't just a symbol of Jesus. In the 2nd century, St. Irenaeus wrote that the Eucharist on the altar is no longer common bread, but consists of two realities, earthly and heavenly, and so that when we receive it, our bodies are no longer corruptible, having the hope of the resurrection to eternity. St. Clement of Alexandria wrote that those who partake of it in faith are sanctified in body and in soul. By the will of the Father, the divine mixture, man, is mystically united to the Spirit and to the Word. In addition to this, early Christians had an immense devotion to the consecrated bread. St. Cyril of Jerusalem instructed the faithful to approach communion with adoration and reverence. St. John Chrysostom told his congregation to treat it just as the Magi approached the infant Christ. And St. Augustine taught that it should be adored as the very flesh of Christ. But maybe most compelling of all is that when there was leftover Eucharist after Mass, they didn't just throw it away, they placed it in what are called tabernacles, the same word for the tent that God lived in the Old Testament. And so it is clear that the early church did not think that the Eucharist was ordinary bread or just a symbol. And so I guess my question to Protestants is, why do you?